Quiet now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
I am so delighted that you all could make it today. We are a live show. That is right. Live on the air all over this great land and across the world. We're on from 2 to 4 in the eastern part of the United States of America. And we're in all your homes, all your devices from 11 to 1 on the western part of this nation. And joining me today, my darling Albert.
Albert, thank you.
And you know, he is a distinguished producer who came from radio with a history of a dogged determination.
What?
And the kind of intellectual and a brilliant acuity when it comes to current events, when it comes to sorting out some complex issues. I turn first to my North Star. That's Albert.
Kim, how are you?
Oh, Kim. Actually, I'm sorry. That's what I meant. Yeah, sorry, Albert. Yeah, Albert's okay, but Kim's the one. You got to go back. So go back. A lot of those compliments earlier for Kim, not Albert. I'm sorry about that, Albert, but that's just trying to be, yeah.
Going to be a great show. Yoo-hoo!
Going to be a terrific show in the sense that we have brilliant people coming through. Yeah. Lawyers. We're going to go to Minnesota. Bill Black is in Minnesota. He's a brilliant attorney. His specialty is, his specialty is economics, and his specialty is, in addition to so many other things, the world of crypto, the world of SNL. He broke, essentially, he was the whistleblower for the SNL scandal. But he obviously has, and teaching at the law school there, all this credibility when it comes to evaluating the use of excessive force in law enforcement situations. So he's very much appropriate to what's happening in his backyard, and that is what's happening in Minnesota with the horrifying events that are associated with this ICE agent opening fire on an unarmed motorist. More on her, who she was, and we'll look at that video again. I'll give you fair warning if you want to look away. But the video is critical, I think, when you're looking at evaluating the new disinformation. You know, if you're anywhere on social media, you've seen now what I've been talking about here since the beginning of this administration. We have t-shirts that say Project 1984.5. I have a mug right here. Project 1984.5. And the reason we refer to 1984 is because the George Orwell book details, there it is, at getmarkmerch.com, and there are going to be more of those type shirts. We're going to change. There'll be more of that 1984.5. And I mentioned this, look, the merch thing is just a way to kind of rep what we're talking about. But what we're talking about is quite serious, of course. And that is the disinformation on blast from this administration and following this heinous act of excessive force by this ICE agent. Once again, Big Brother, see George Orwell, and this is what I'm talking about on social media. It's everywhere now. We've been talking about it since the beginning of the administration, but they're all talking about Orwell. Don't believe the video. Believe what I'm telling you. Believe that this motorist was ramming our officers, had turned her vehicle into a lethal weapon. He had no choice but to take out this target. This is exactly what Kristi Noem said after the incident. This brave ICE officer took on this person who was getting in the way of a legal operation and tried to ram our officers. That's what she said. Then she modified that story later when she realized the video it's absurd. The video is so clearly not reflecting those facts. This is, though, the Orwellian thing. Then the president of the United States, with his, he's a mad king. He comes on with this long thing about, these courageous ICE agents and how she was trying to get in the way of a lawful operation. It's disgusting. But that is the Orwellian environment that we live in, where Big Brother government is telling you one thing when you know the opposite is true. The Venezuelan drug stuff. You know that anything related to drugs and narcotics coming to the country, they're not a priority for this country. They're not. America hasn't prioritized the interdiction of drugs. Now, they moved all of these military assets off the coast of Venezuela, and they've made these drug interdictions in the Caribbean, but that's not really about drugs. That's about a military flex. They've gotten rid of a lot of the very people and personnel associated with government and agencies that are associated with drug interdiction. Look it up. Look at the number of deletions associated with U.S. government drug enforcement. There are a bunch of sub-agencies that are associated with interdicting narcotics and breaking up narco rings in this country, getting people off of drugs, helping addicts, all the things related to drug addiction, both way up the chain and way down the chain to the user. Those things have been eliminated in wide swaths of deletions with this government. So don't tell me that narcotics are the reason you're in Venezuela. It's absurd. We know. And now it's all about oil. And if you missed yesterday's show, you should go back and watch my conversation with Mr. Global, because he even points to a bigger plan in Venezuela. But more to the point, the information you're getting out of this government in the U.S., sadly, is just not accurate. I mean, it's a day's drive from anything accurate. Do we have the Kristi Noem, her talking about it, Albert, her talking about this incident? I'll show the incident to everyone. I'll show the video. But right now I'm kind of talking about what the government is saying about it, and I just thought I'd love to try to track down, I think Kim has it in the rundown, Noem with Jake Tapper. And Tapper says, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm looking at the video. I don't see anything that reflects the narrative that you're speaking of. It was a moment of sobriety in this craziness. This is from yesterday when Noem was right out front. She couldn't wait to get out there and talk about the ICE crusade and how it was being interrupted by this marauder in this woman who's, what was she, 37 years old, single mother. The father had passed away. Mm-hmm. She has a 3-year-old, is it, Kim?
6-year-old, I believe. 6, yeah.
There's a 6-year-old child with no parents now because an ICE agent takes out the mother. Go ahead. Roll it, please, Albert. It starts with the video, so this is a graphic. I mean, he approaches the car. No! Get the F out. She pulls back, and then she pulls out, and you can see the wheels of her car are turned away from the officers.
What the did you do?
Yeah.
There you could see the driver, after being shot, losing control of her car, crashing into cars parked on the left side of the street. And then you hear the witness yelling, "Shame, shame," at the ICE officers. We also see video of the car on the driver's side where a different bystander is checking on the victim. Again, we're going to show you a different video. This is going to be a graphic, and you're going to see blood.
Oh.
Terrorism. What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased. We're continuing to gather more information, but this goes to show the assaults that our ICE officers and our law enforcement are under every single day. These vehicle rammings are domestic acts of terrorism. We're working with the Department of Justice to prosecute them as such.
We obviously do not know what the pending investigations will reveal about this shooting, but to
Stop
anyone,
for a second, Albert.
would I?
I mean, obviously, she was taking time out of her line dancing competition to speak to the press, but you see how instantly she plays the marauder domestic terrorism card. It's wild how the domestic terrorists, the thugs that are ICE, are defended by the U.S. government right now, which is inhabited by these crazies. Kristi Noem, and the rest of these cosplayers from Hegseth to Miller. Go ahead, continue, please, Albert.
It's clear that Secretary Noem's description is abjectly false. President Trump echoed Noem. He posted on Truth Social, quote, "The woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, who seems to have shot her in self-defense," unquote. And President Trump included a version of this video. Trump's appears to be slowed down from the original.
Yeah. So you see American media calling this out, which is good. There'll be fewer and fewer of those media outlets to do that. This time next year, I'd be surprised if CNN even exists in the form it exists right now, but that's for another day. The reality is, though, that it's, from this government, total disinformation. I mean, to call it disinformation is actually a polite way to put it, right? But these are really, there's an immorality and a moral rot to what you're hearing from the Kristi Noems of the world and the Tom Homans of the world when you kill a single mother who is being harassed by ICE agents. First, she's an American citizen. She was trying to get around the vehicle that was there in front of her, the ICE vehicle. She's waving the other ICE vehicle to pass her. They get out of their car. He goes up. Get out of the effing car. Get out of the effing car. He's literally loaded for bear. These guys are they've got it all, right? They've got pepper spray, which, by the way, was used on those eyewitnesses and others who gathered after the scene began to devolve. And he's got a weapon, a sidearm, that he discharges. So the one guy you can see on the side of the car, and then there's another guy in front, but he's not in front completely of the car. First of all, he shouldn't be at all in front of the car. That's just not a good way. These people are clearly undertrained. I talked about this for some time when they began to staff up ICE. Remember, they began to broaden sort of the standards, I'll put it.
Yeah, 50 grand, and you too can join. It doesn't matter your experience.
Exactly. Thank you. Nightclub bouncer, great. We want you. Fraternity brother, great. We want you.
J6er, come on in.
Yeah, J6ers, welcome. Proud Boys, perfect. Couldn't make linebacker in college? No sweat. Here's a chance to rough up some people who are working at a car wash. ICE and these agents are thugs and nothing more. They're armed thugs being enabled by this government, and it is alarming in the extreme. And this is one of those moments that you hope will bring some sobriety, but what it seems to be bringing is more cover-up. And what we're showing you now, video from the scene, It is video that eyewitnesses shot. And as these eyewitnesses were recording this video, they are being told to move away. There were these strong declarations. We've got medics coming. We don't need you if you're a physician. One person who was a physician came up, and then you see the silver car right here. That is the guy who shot her, and he's driving away from the scene. Look, this is, in that car is the ICE agent. He's turning around. Watch this. She's saying, look, he's leaving. He's leaving. That's what the audio is right now.
Pussy motherfuckers, man.
He's driving away.
No, get the fuck out of our neighborhood.
Yeah. So the that was extraordinary to me. I mean, you know, this is a legit crime scene now, right? You've got a serious incident. You just killed somebody. But this is what they're getting away with now. So we see this video. We know the facts to be one thing, but from the government, we're hearing something else. What did Homan say, Albert? Let me, before we get to that. Michelle Crocker says, the whole thing is shameful. I'd say that I'm surprised that MAGA is defending this, but I almost expected it. Thank you for a $5 super chat and for those thoughts, which I think are accurate. Mm-hmm. Here's Tom Homan. CBS News, as you know, has been taken over by, what would you call it? It's Barry Weiss is now she runs it. So there's a little more of a MAGA perspective. That might be, again, a polite way to put it. Anyway, they sat down with Tom Homan, and he is sort of the deporter-in-chief, and he speaks to what's going on American streets with ICE. Go ahead, Albert.
Some Americans respond with, this was not justified, this was not necessary. Tell them, this is really about them. What do you see when you see this video?
Well, look, I just got off airplane. There's 100 different videos out there, and there may be body cam video. I'm not going to comment on that. This is an ongoing investigation, but I think it's reckless. What I'm seeing on social media, I've seen at least 7 or 8 members of Congress make the comment that ICE just murdered somebody. Murdered, right? Now, I said back in March, and I'm on numerous programs, when the rhetoric started escalating back in late March, I said, if this rhetoric continues, there will be bloodshed. I've seen this movie before. I've done this for over 40 years. And sadly, I was right. There has been bloodshed. There's been attacks on ICE officers, there have been people killed, even our detainees were killed here in Dallas.
Yeah.
The investigation's ongoing. There's a lot of video, a lot of evidence that hasn't been seen yet. I'm not a forensics expert, and neither are the people and members of Congress commenting on this. They all just hold their judgment. Take a deep breath, hold their judgment. Because I think the comments about murder is going to incite what? More violence, more threats, and hopefully not more bloodshed.
And I want to get into that.
This is a typical. Thank you, Albert. This is a typical response, and it's laughable given the fact that you'll remember seconds. It would seem. I mean, it might have been 15 minutes after Charlie Kirk was killed. Donald Trump was on social media the same way he is after everything, and talking about the Democrats did this, the right wing did, the left wing did this because they hate the right, and it was and it has been so clearly a move that Trump and the GOP and the right has made. So it's so wild to hear them blow the whistle to say, well, I don't want to say anything. I mean, this clearly isn't a situation that we can make any judgments on. There's so many different videos. Well, by the way, your head of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, she's ready to make a judgment on it right away. She came out, we showed you the video, and she said, hey, this person was ramming one of our officers, and this was a self-defense move.
We had this morning Vice President J.D. Vance speak on the matter, and he does not agree with you, Mark. Let's hear it.
Here's J.D. Vance from this morning.
Just to follow up on that, Mr. Vice President, on the agent, is he still on duty or has he been placed on leave?
Is the agent still on duty is the question, or has she been relieved of duty?
What was the target of the operation on Wednesday?
And what was the target?
ICE operation on Wednesday?
Well, first of all, it was a legitimate law enforcement operation. We were going door to door to try to find criminal illegal aliens and deport them from the United States of America, because if you come to our country illegally in violation of our immigration laws, then we have the mandate, and in fact, we have the legal duty to enforce those immigration laws. Whether he's been placed on administrative leave, I don't know the answer to that question. I'd refer it to the Department of Homeland Security, and they can follow up. I will say, look, I would appreciate everybody saying a prayer for that agent. Look, in the past 6 months, he has been hit twice by a motor vehicle. One time, the first time, it led to over 30 stitches and very serious injuries to his legs. This is a guy who's actually done a very, very important job for the United States of America. He's been assaulted, he's been attacked, he's been injured because of it. He deserves a debt of gratitude. And I think the media prejudging and talking about this guy as if he's a murderer is one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen from the American media. Yeah.
Really? That's what you got from that? Sir? I can't hear the question, so.
That was the only clip. I grabbed it from the live stream.
I think that I mean, look, say a prayer for the agent, seriously.
Yeah.
He had 30 stitches and he had damage to his legs. Boy, he looked like he was in pretty good shape when I saw him. He jumped out of that car pretty quickly. He's running alongside these innocent American victims of ICE thuggery without any issue. Murphy Rowan with a $50 super chat. Wow, thank you for that, Murph. Appreciate that always. Big shout out. Title I of the U.S. DOJ on use of force. Quote, firearms may not be discharged at a vehicle unless person in the vehicle is threatened deadly force by means other than the vehicle, or the vehicle is operated to cause death and no other defense exists.
Yeah, but you can see this woman turning away from the officer. She's trying to get around things.
Exactly.
She's not trying to aim for anyone. And they have video. There were so many people there that there's video from all different angles. We've shown you one, but there's video from different sides. And in every single cut, she looks like she's turning away, not towards.
She wants nothing. The first thing she does is try to wave them past. She doesn't want anything to do with them. But I want to just go back to put it back up there, the Murphy Rowan. This is interesting, and we're going to talk to Bill Black here in a second, who's a real legal ninja, and we're going to talk to David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, who himself is a legal ninja. We'll do that in the second hour. But put Murphy's comment up there again, please, because what Murphy Rowan was saying was. Can you do it or
I'm working on it.
Okay. What Murphy Rowan was saying, and what it is important there, is that the use of force and firearms is such that firearms may not be discharged at a vehicle unless the person in the vehicle is threatening, and this is the important part, deadly force by means other than the vehicle, or the vehicle is operated to cause death and no other defense exists. So we know that there was no threatened deadly force. There was no threatened deadly force by other means, right? She didn't have a gun. She didn't have any other, okay? So now we're down to the vehicle, and as Kim says, the vehicle was being turned away. It is absolutely the case that this was excessive force.
I mean, the government is arguing that she was aiming for the officers, that she was trying to take officers out with the car, but it sure doesn't look like that on the video. And that's where we get, lies, because do you believe what they tell you, or do you believe what you're seeing?
And then that ICE agent speeds away. These are thugs. These are poorly trained, if trained at all, thugs. They're given vests, they're given pepper spray, weapons, and they're given orders. Go in, and we've got your back. We'll lie for you. We'll figure out ways that you don't have to account for any of your actions. We'll cover up for you. That's what's going on, straight up. I would think it would anger everybody. I mean, if this were a Joe Biden presidency and you had these guys going into various neighborhoods and putting slugs in people, you'd be okay with it, MAGA? If the police in Minnesota can't do anything about this, what makes this woman think that she should interfere? I see it the same as Ashley Babbitt, says Wes in Florida. She's not interfering. She wasn't interfering. She just, I think, dropped her kid off from school. The 6-year-old who has no father and now has no mother. I wanted to see if is there anything else I need to before I bring Bill on? I don't think so. Bill's in Minnesota. You know, he's someone who really knows this territory too and has the legal mind. Quickly, Michelle Crocker says with a $10 super chat, and thank you always for a super chat.
Big shout out.
I was raised by a single widowed mother. I think it would be wrong if a judge didn't take this into account and prosecute this as much as possible. Well, I, of course, agree with you, Michelle Crocker, and my heart breaks for this child. When is enough, Mark? Asked Chaplain Fred. So when is enough? Why can't we impeach Trump and jail all their cronies? Enough is enough. I mean, because there just isn't the political will to do it. Impeachment is a political act. It is not a legal act. And so you can just do the arithmetic. That's the reason. I know in a way you're just asking it rhetorically and you're saying out of frustration, why can't we just impeach it? And why can't we get rid of these people? But to the extent there are those who feel as though this does it, right? They'll impeach somebody now.
Well,
you should impeach,
you figure
impeach
like
Kristi Noem, impeach human, but there has to be the political will and meaning the numbers to do it, the votes. Beth Farmer with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Beth.
Big shout out.
So happy to join live today. In a dark time like this, I need current information. Adavanning. Thanks to Mark Thompson Show. Yes, I know there are many of you who are on your meds. Stay on them.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I wish I had better news. Vance is now telling the press how the video should be viewed and exactly what they are seeing in the video as well. Again, this is Orwellian. This is 1984.5. I am drinking from my 1984.5 mug, Project 1984.5. I am telling you, we are half a click off of the Orwellian 1984 dystopia that he described in that book. You can also enjoy a Project 1984.5 mug at getmarkmerch.com. There's a bunch of other stuff there that you might like at getmarkmerch.com, and there's more merch coming out with the Project 1984.5 logo and design. So in that way, you can at least say, hey, I recognize what's going on, CC Ryder says, as ex-GOP. I didn't know CC Ryder was ex-GOP. That's interesting.
What? Big shout out.
Big shout out. As ex-GOP, I can tell you the playbook here is to dehumanize the victim so viewers feel zero sympathy for them and frame the abuser as the victim. I think that's exactly right. That's why he talks about 30 stitches and he'd been run over before.
very accurate.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Exactly. They do it all the time. And that is what we're seeing. I mean, Kim tells you she was a 37-year-old single mother. Father had passed away, had a 6-year-old child, and she's an American citizen, and she is being hassled by ICE. And she wants to get away. Her steering wheel and front wheels were turned. She's trying to avoid these guys, get away from these guys, and they use deadly force to take her out. These guys are thugs. I mean, deadly thugs. These are mobsters on the street. It's outrageous. And ICE policy is outrageous. And it's supercharged by a budget that has given them billions and billions of dollars more. And then their head, Kristi Noem, shows up hours later in her big cowboy hat, cosplaying and talking about the fact that this is a righteous cause that this woman was involved in stopping. And for that reason, she had to be taken out. So, all right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to get to my distinguished guest, and, it's just one of those days we have so much, but this is a day in which this guest has so much to offer to weigh in on this. Bill Black, a brilliant lawyer, legal mind, one of the great whistleblowers, the whistleblower when the SNL scandal was going back. He was a professor of economics and is a professor of economics and law, and He is in Minnesota. I mean, so the university and the Minnesota School of Law is where Bill Black regularly plies his trade of teaching smart people about the law and about everything going on in America, even in the expanding world of crypto and the economics of this administration. So I think he's uniquely qualified to talk about what's happening both in Minnesota and beyond in America. How about it for Professor Bill Black? Hello, sir.
Hello. By the way, I'm in New Orleans at the moment, but yes, we live about 6 miles.
Yes, no, I know you're not in Minnesota right this instant. I was just saying that's where you are. Right. So, but I wanted to get a perspective from a Minnesotan, I guess is kind of why I mentioned that. And you bring, in addition to that, a legal perspective. You've seen these videos.
Well, can I add something?
Sure, please.
You buried the lead. I got a PhD in criminology from UC Irvine.
Oh, I didn't even know that. That's
one of the top criminology schools in the world.
Okay, so should I do this intro again for the breakout? Bill Black, with a PhD in criminology, is a professor at the University of Minnesota School of Law. He is a brilliant mind when it comes to crypto and it comes to economics, but he's also a brilliant mind when it comes to criminal activity and the use of deadly force in these situations of the sort that emerged in Minnesota, where he is, as I say, a professor there at the Minnesota School of Law. He joins us from New Orleans. How about it for Bill Black? All right. Now, Bill Black, you've seen these videos. We've shown a bunch this morning, different perspectives. What seems clear to us as lay people is that there was excessive force employed here. How do you see it?
Okay, so there's so many things, but let's start with the core. You cannot get a senior position in this administration unless you are willing to tell the lie that January 6th was just a kumbaya type thing. That is their screening test, right? Are you willing to lie? So every senior position has that. Beyond that, Homan, who is that guy? Where have we heard him in the news? He was the guy with the bag full of money, the bribe. So we now select deliberately for the top law enforcement people, criminals.
Again, just to read people in on that, Bill Black, just to read people in and remind them, that was an FBI investigation. It was a sting, essentially, in which they gave him $50,000. This was in a bag, a Chipotle bag, as I recall, and he took it. He took the money in return for promised favors, and then that entire thing went away. The entire incident was just passed over, and then he was confirmed in this senior position, as you say. Please continue.
Right.
Go ahead.
And an enormous number of pardons have also gone out to people for corruption, for violence, just plain fraud, right? And narco-terrorists, right? A head of state got a pardon.
Hernandez from Honduras,
from the president. So this is not a normal business. This is not a normal presidency. This is an illegal operation. It is a form of organized crime with a family. I'm married to an Italian. It's like you took it out of a play, a script.
No, you're sort of saying it's a mob family running America, and those tentacles, I guess, is what you're suggesting extend to all of these different people who have kind of bought into the lawlessness of it.
Right. And let's do the setting. Something similar happened, and the dismissal of the case just occurred in November. And it was the same lies. They said a woman had attacked the ICE type officials. They were multiple agencies. And then it turned out that there was actually a video, and it shows that at a high rate of speed, the government van comes around the corner and deliberately T-bones her car. And then the agent shoots 5 times and hits her. And then he sends emails bragging that he caused 7 holes in her with only 5 shots. Think about that level of depravity. And then they lied and said she caused all these things and was assaulting them. A court has just dismissed that in November, but only because the videos came out. Otherwise, they would have gotten away with it. And remember, you just showed us how the person who committed the homicide immediately was allowed to leave in violation of every conceivable law enforcement investigative protocol. They did the same thing in the earlier incident. They allowed him to drive his vehicle 1,000 miles so the defense couldn't investigate the vehicle. They lied about what was happening. They lie. And listen to the Vice President of the United States of America, a Yale lawyer, saying they were sending ICE, I quote him, door to door. What happened to probable cause? These are people just walking door to door. And why are they in Minneapolis? Because the President of the United States is attacking Minneapolis politically and was trying to force Governor Walz out of the race. So for pure politics, they are willing to abandon all standards of law enforcement, all standards of the Constitution, and then to be, as you were talking about, staggeringly incompetent. Every conceivable rule of training, these folks violated. You don't put yourself behind a car. You don't put yourself in front of the car. That vehicle that she was driving weighs about 4,000 plus pounds. Remember physics, force equals mass times acceleration? It's a big frigging thing. And if she was actually trying to hurt somebody, you can kill people with the car after all. So you don't put yourself as a law enforcement officer, a Leo, in that kind of position. You are taught that from the most basic stuff. But you have the right point. These people are not selected because they're the best. They're selected because they're the worst. And then they are trained to become even worse. Right?
This is sort of the despot's handbook manual, isn't it?
Yes, but we haven't got to the big page yet. We are, of course, rightly focused on what the person they have killed and the person that they tried. It's a miracle that the woman they shot 5 times and caused, as they said, 7 holes in her body survived. But that's not what they really want. They want an ICE agent killed. They want their Horst Wessel. That was Hitler's fake hero that he came to power with in Germany. He was a minor, unlike a real poet, award-winning poet, who was the victim of this homicide in Minnesota. Horst Wessel was, sort of a cranky guy that wrote music. And so the Horst Wessel Lied, Horst Wessel song, became by Nazi law mandatory along with the national anthem to be played at any Nazi rally and to extend the Führer salute. I won't do it on camera. at the time that you did it. He became this drunken, scummy guy who used violence against people, was assassinated, and he was assassinated by communists in that case, and they turned them into this national hero. And the excuse for Kristallnacht, right, the destruction of the Jews. And the SA led the Kristallnacht as well, and part of it was singing those songs as they attacked. That's the propaganda they want. So Homan, you put on saying it would be irresponsible and completely unprofessional to talk about this event before we get facts. But then, of course, all the others not only talked about it, but claimed all kinds of false things about her.
Yeah, they spun a
described
narrative.
her as a terrorist, a whole series of other things, an attempted murderer, lied about not one thing, but at least 8 things. And Homan flipped in an instant and said, oh, yeah, they're right. And the other people, you news people, you're the one jumping to conclusions. How outrageous. And Kristi Noem didn't just cosplay, she actually changed outfits between her cosplays.
I didn't know that. You're telling me that she put that hat on. Albert, find that shot again of Kristi Noem speaking to everybody. You're telling me she put that hat on, that whole kind of like Texas Ranger outfit on prior to the press conference, specifically to address the press?
Yes, for the first one, and it switched to us, and she had a second one where she changed her cosplay in the same day. Like
she changes outfits. She has more costume changes than the cast of Cats. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. She really, and I know I'm kind of being cheeky about it, but I mean, also something quite serious about it. There's a theater to everything to her. There's a theater. It's as though there isn't a reality to these things. It's all about messaging. It's all about how I look. It's all about whether I'm wearing camo or a big hat, or she really plays the theater of all of these moments.
Right, and it's to the base. What is this subsection of the base, the absolute stalwarts in MAGAdom want? They want this toughness, this faux toughness, and they want people to die. They despise huge chunks of Americans. They just ran the ad. What does America look like with 100 million deportations? I mean, they're nowhere near that number of people, of immigrants, period, much less, quote unquote, illegal immigrants.
Yeah, just to set everybody to calibrate, maybe 13 million is the number.
Right. They want an ethnic cleansing of America in favor entirely of white folks.
I think you're making a really interesting point, though, when you say this is the beginning, but what they really want is one of their ICE officers hit, because then they can justify and crank up this level of violence on the streets of America. You can even invoke an insurrection act. I was worried that Trump actually might do that yesterday as protests around Minnesota began to grow, as Walls began to talk about maybe bringing the National Guard in. I thought, oh, this is Trump's opportunity to flip that switch if he wants.
Yes, and it will be used for maximum and massive election interference on election days.
CNN reports that the ICE agent had been with ICE for 10 years and that internal DHS people do not believe his actions were correct. Yeah, I'm sure anybody who's on the inside at DHS, I mean, when they say internal, yeah, the people who aren't out front speaking, but this administration can do no wrong, and no action on the part of anyone associated with this administration. It's a high-profile action, can be called out as wrong. I mean, it's a remarkable thing.
Let me be clear on the police part. That police officer put all of his colleagues in mortal danger, discharging his weapon like that.
Well, he's not a police officer. You're talking about the
Yes,
the ICE
I'm
agent.
just
I just
saying
want to know,
from
but to be clear, because I was just thinking. Sorry, Bill. I don't mean to interrupt, but I was thinking if it had been a police officer, he would have been put on administrative leave, and there would have been an investigation. I mean, we've seen it happen over and over and over again. But there's none of that stuff happening because he's an ICE agent. That's the distinction.
Right. No, but I'm going to your bit more basic point about training. These people do not know the most basic things about law enforcement. And because they don't, the most likely cause of an ICE officer dying is an ICE officer shooting an ICE officer. He put himself in a position where he was going to discharge a weapon. Bullets don't just stop on their own.
Sure, you're saying the lack of training actually might have led to the very thing you're talking about. Another ICE agent is hit, but instead of that actually being the narrative that's described, later it would be, no, that ICE agent was hit by fire from one of these protesters, one of these. I mean, this is the kind of narrative we're going to see emerge.
And people focus on the street scene. As you said, I live about 6 miles from there. You know what we do super well in Minnesota? We make the streets passable after snow. And the Kristi Noem story is that their vehicle was blocked by the snow and it was impassable. Now their vehicles are these huge SUV thingies. They got a lot of weight over the rear axle and rear axle drive. Look at that street. You think they got blocked so they couldn't move on it?
Yeah, you're saying her story about it was stuck in the snow and everything. You're saying it. That's just BS, obviously.
They lie about everything. And they lie about everything because they flood the zone.
All right, so Mark,
if they make 60 lies, nobody will have the time to respond. If they do, everybody will turn off the program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
No, you're right. You lose it in the flood of BS and of other stories. Mark, please ask the professor, asked Harry Magnan, can these idiots, our leaders like Noem, be prosecuted?
No. The officer potentially could be prosecuted, but all of us know this is another thing that we know, but we haven't factored into our lives yet because we've lived whatever length of life in a completely different system. But Trump will simply pardon all these people.
Well, let me ask you about that, because can't this person, we call him an officer, but I guess he's an officer of ICE or whatever. Can't this ICE agent or officer be prosecuted on state murder charges?
Yes.
Now, that's not pardonable, though, is it, Bill Black?
As a practical matter, it's impossible. Well, it's extraordinarily difficult. But as I said, if they were to do so, Trump would pardon the officer.
Pardon him on a federal level, but can he pardon a state murder charge?
So that's the interesting thing, right? Trump is asserting that power. He's already pardoned someone purportedly in Georgia of a state crime. Now, he may well lose that in the courts, but that the official position of the Department of Justice is Trump can pardon people for state crimes. That's how extreme this has become. But the Supreme Court has also made it extraordinarily difficult to sue on civil grounds. And the latest news from Minnesota just before we went on was that ICE was freezing Minnesota out of the investigation.
Yeah, that's kind of wild, and that's a very important detail. So this investigation is going to be handled by ICE. This reminds me of when the Catholic Church does their own investigations about the epidemic of, child abuse going on. It's just, we've got it handled. It's our family. We'll handle it. I mean, the reality is here, Minnesota and Minnesota law enforcement investigative agencies should be involved in what happened on the streets of Minnesota. This is outrageous that they can box out the Minnesota justice system this way.
No, you're quite right. And your example hits home, particularly for me. It wasn't, I wasn't Catholic. It was Episcopal, but it was the youth minister.
That's just it, and then that's another horror wrought on generations. So, to the question that was asked, let me just then run this out, because I had the view that, you can drive away the scene from the scene, as we saw the officer, or again, agent, whatever he is, the ICE guy. We saw him do it. We saw him discharge his weapon inappropriately, kill somebody on the streets of Minnesota, then get back in his car as the crowd began to gather, leave the other ICE agents there to handle it. As paramedics came in, they had her on the sidewalk administering CPR. He drove away, as we've noted. But I was thinking, sorry, dude, you can drive away, but you will be tried and convicted of murder in the state of Minnesota, and Daddy Trump can't help you. You're saying, Mark, that's not quite true. The new kind of reinterpreted pardon power may actually lead to him being able to skate from murder charges? I mean, this is a cold-blooded act of murder, Bill Black.
Well, of course, that is part of the issue, and that's why you would have been investigating him, and that's why they made sure he was whisked away.
He is driving away right now in that silver SUV. Go ahead.
But your other point, yes, they eventually do CPR, but that's only after rejecting the man who walks forward with his hands in the air and says, I'm a physician. Please allow me to render assistance. And they say, we have our own medics and they'll deal with it. So they don't have a doctor. They have someone that God only knows how much medic training, and they're not actually on scene and they're not providing care. And seconds are vital if you're going to have any chance of survival.
I agree. It was performative, but let me just get back to my question. I felt this is a cold-blooded act. So what I'm getting from you is that, sure, Mark, you recognize it as a cold-blooded act. We all recognize it as a cold-blooded act of murder, but they're going to mess with the narrative and they're going to fudge it. So in addition to the potential, this is what I'm getting from you in this conversation, the very real potential that there'll be a full pardon granted, the tenuous relationship between a federal pardon and a state pardon, you're saying is something that they're also beginning to fudge, because I was saying that, he can't get a state pardon. And that fudged narrative will play out even if there is some sort of adjudication in a criminal court, that is to say in a state court. They're going to fudge this narrative to the point that it's going to be very hard to convict this guy. Is that a decent summary of what we're saying?
Yes, except two more things. One, it's not that they did instantly. The smear began instantly from these folks without even the pretense of an investigation, and full of lies from Trump that it was a miracle that the police officer was not killed. Right? Yeah. And second, they have not begun to use their bag of dirt, the dark arts. Anybody who comes forward as a witness against this guy, say there's a whistleblower, they will seek to destroy that person. They will go after everything in their life. And, again, I'm a serial whistleblower. This is, even under, more legitimate administrations, the plan. Imagine what they'll do in these circumstances. And again, they are not restrained in the slightest by truth.
Question from Linda: can't the family sue for unlawful murder? And it's interesting, the child now is without a parent. There was no father. Father passed away, and now the mother's been murdered. Can't the family sue for unlawful murder, asks Linda.
The answer is yes. And the further answer is the Supreme Court has made it extraordinarily difficult to succeed in any such lawsuit. And therefore, it's harder usually to get a plaintiff's lawyer because they ain't going to win and you can't afford to hire them because, after all, there's no adult left.
Wow.
with any source of income.
Mark, please ask Bill Black, what can we do to make them accountable? Do we need to do eye for an eye? I don't know what that means. I don't know how you do eye for an eye. What is the solution to make these individuals in charge accountable? Ask Chaplain Fred with a $10 super chat. Thanks, Chaplain Fred. Bill, is there any way to, what is your prescription for holding this government, which, as you've described, has so many, they've conscripted so many people who are on board with their lawlessness? What is your prescription for trying to hold them to account?
Well, let's first realize a fact we haven't talked about. The whole reason she was there was to try to hold them accountable. She wasn't there randomly. It's an effort by the community to say, we stand with our neighbors. And we're not going to attack you, but we're going to witness, we're going to protest, we're going to blow whistles and warn folks that ICE is going door to door, which, by the way, again, you cannot go door to door through America because, hey, there might be somebody criminal on this street. That J.D. Vance is a Yale-educated lawyer, arguably the top law school in the world. And he just said that. Again, they don't say the quiet part out loud. They scream it. They blazon it. They cosplay it. They hire the washed up Superman and make him, because he's a maggot, their cosplayer in chief.
It's true that Dean Cain becoming sort of a poster boy for ICE. So the answer is, what I'm getting for you, and the answer to that question as we kind of wrap up here, is that street stuff, that anger that the community is showing, that's part of the pushback. And what's implied here, I think, is that pushback does make a difference. It's risky. It sounds like, insanely risky, but we've seen it play out in New York City. We've seen it play out in Minnesota, where they hound these ICE agents and some of these ICE raids. They surround them with enough neighbors and enough people chronicling everything on their phone that sometimes the raids just dissolve. They go away. It may just only buy you a win for the day, but on some level, is that what you're saying is the way that we hold them to account?
Sure. You saw in the picture some of the ways it works. There were like 16 of these folks, with the hoodies, the law enforcement officers, all in this one thing doing nothing, right? So yes, but mostly you make up where the community disapproval. But what do you need to do? You need to win the midterms. You need to get the whistleblowers. Okay. Treasure trove. America has more whistleblowers than the rest of the world combined, and more high-level whistleblowers, and more from the Justice Department and such. The Democratic leadership, oxymoron, led by regular morons, in Washington, D.C., keeps saying, we've got to win the midterms and then we could have hearings. Well, there are roughly 30 state legislative bodies that can do these hearings today. And we have the whistleblowers. And even if they're subject to non-disclosure agreements, the state legislatures or the AGs, we can also use AGs to do this, attorney generals, state attorney generals, could issue a subpoena, which would break through to non-disclosure agreements. And Mark, you're the perfect person. How do we convince people? Do we get people like me going, and I have a fact, and here's another fact, and here's data and things? Or do we tell narratives that people can identify with and understand? That's what whistleblowers do. And you know what else they do that's critical now? They model courage instead of helplessness. We
you
can
can
fight
you
back.
can make fun of yourself that way, but you're one of the most famous whistleblowers in American history. So I mean, during the SNL scandal and that entire I mean, we're talking about a banking scandal that, you know, threatened to bring down the savings and loan industry. You were the critical whistleblower.
Yeah, I
So
blew
you
the
know a
whistle
little
on
something
5
about
U.S.
this.
senators, the Speaker of the House, the presidential appointees running my agency, et cetera, et cetera. But we can agree I'm weird. Even at the law firm I started at, I was famous for what we called CLGs, career limiting gestures.
Well, with that, I have to say goodbye, but only so long. We'll see you again. Love your input. Didn't even, by the way, Bill was scheduled to be with us before any of this happened because he's an expert in the world of crypto and in economics that is so affected by a radically changing landscape when it comes to digital currencies and all that. And I'd love to still have that conversation with you at minimum at a future date. But I so appreciate you being available to talk to us about this. Being a Minnesotan, living just 6 miles from where this incident happened, and of course with your PhD in criminology. I mean, wow, really an embarrassment of riches when it comes to your expertise. So thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you for having us on. Take care.
Bill Black, everybody. Right on, right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, this is, it's a busy day. It's hard to convince people that what they're calling good is evil. They've lost their moral compass following Trump, says Sushi Roll. Yeah, I mean, it's also, there's a lot of ego in the decision to follow Trump, let's say, or to be MAGA. You know, once you buy the merch, once you've gone to a rally, whatever, it's hard to let go. And I kind of use that as an extreme, but I'm just saying once you've sort of thrown your lot in a certain way, it's very hard to get people to admit that, well, that's just a bridge too far, man. I got to jump off with this guy. Now, you do see it. Joe Rogan has done it, it would seem, and maybe there are others in that manosphere who have done it as well. But there's a lot of ego in our choices when it comes to political leadership and religious leadership. Yeah, he's a great guest, and he'll be back. Bill Black, yeah, another great guest. Says something. Thank you, Bill, says Jane O. Yeah, good on you, Bill. Great guest, says Glenn B. Yeah, a lot of love for Bill Black. He will be back. I had something else I wanted to get to before I bring on David Katz, and it's really something of a little bit of a change, but it has to do with I'm just looking, Albert. I'm thinking Greenland. Can I just touch on Greenland for a second? Because this is an insanity that's going on with Greenland. I mean, you understand we have wide we have wide liberties when it comes to Greenland already. That is to say, we have military base there. We have privileges there. We could likely, with simple kind of pro forma, just sort of normal memo of request, do pretty much whatever we want in Greenland already. But taking over Greenland or buying Greenland, as Rubio's tried to kind of go, well, the president doesn't mean he's going to take it over. He just means he wants to buy it. That's not an option either. I was just reading this morning. I mean, you've got, there was an agreement during the Cold War, United States enjoying sweeping military access. Right now, the United States has one base. This is what I was telling you. Mm-hmm. It allows, this agreement, the U.S. to construct, install, maintain, and operate military bases across Greenland. Also to house personnel there, control landings, takeoffs, anchorages, moorings, movements, and operation of ships, aircraft, and waterborne craft. All of that can already be done. So if you're worried, if it's it's a smokescreen. There's not national security interest. They want the minerals. They want the stuff in the ground. Anyway, you already have all the national security liberties that you need. It was signed in 1951 by the U.S. and Denmark. And it is said here by a Danish researcher, the U.S. has such a free hand in Greenland that it can pretty much do what it wants. I have a very hard time seeing that the U.S. couldn't get pretty much everything it wanted. if it just asked nicely, said this researcher. Now, this is the part about buying Greenland I wanted you to know. You can't do it.
But Marco Rubio says yes.
In the past, Denmark would have been the decider. In 1946, it refused the Truman administration offer of $100 million in gold for Greenland. Today, things are different. Greenlanders now have the right to hold a referendum on independence, and Danish officials have said that it's up to the island's 57,000 inhabitants to decide their future.
I don't think they want America. When J.D. Vance went there, didn't the whole country stand up and turn their back the other way?
Thank you, Kim. That's right. And a poll last year found 85% of residents oppose the idea of an American takeover. Yeah. So buying it, taking it over, whatever, it's a non-starter.
Well, not if you're Caroline Levitt. She says there's a range of options for acquiring Greenland, including U.S. military takeover by force.
Albert, do you have? I forget the Greenland video I gave. This is a little wrap package on Greenland. Even some pushback, and you'll see it in this package on the Senate floor for this idea that you want Greenland. This really is the Mad King. Grandpa, just barking things out, and you've got all of these sycophants that he surrounds himself with, this coterie of crazy out there, including smart people, as Bill Black was saying. You got J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio. These are smart guys, but they're like, whatever the Mad King wants. All right, he wants Greenland? All right, let's see if we can do it. Go ahead, Albert.
Several Republicans breaking from the Trump administration over their efforts to try to get Denmark to hand over Greenland.
That is absurd.
Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina taking to the Senate floor, railing against one of the president's top advisors, Stephen Miller, who said obviously Greenland should be part of the U.S.
Turning around and making insane comments about how it is our right to have territory owned by the Kingdom of Denmark. Folks, amateur hour is over.
Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon telling reporters acquiring Greenland would be foolish.
There is no support for any kind of forceful takeover for Greenland or trying to buy them. They're our allies. They want to work with us.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying what President Trump actually wants to do is buy Greenland.
That's always been the president's intent from the very beginning.
But the White House is not ruling out utilizing the military to seize the Danish territory, saying in a statement, utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. The vice president telling Fox News that Greenland is vital to U.S. national security.
We're going to make sure we defend America's interests, and I think the president's willing to go as far as he has to make sure he does that.
House Speaker Mike Johnson, a staunch ally of the president, saying using the military is not an option.
I don't even think that's a possibility. I don't think anybody's seriously considering that. And in the Congress, we're certainly not.
The White House argues the U.S. needs Greenland for national security, but the U.S. already has a military base and American service members stationed there. Greenland is a member of NATO through Denmark and is also bound by Article 5, meaning other NATO member countries would have to come to its defense if attacked. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio did not explain how the United States would even go about purchasing a territory, but he says that he does plan to meet with officials from Greenland and Denmark at some point next week, George.
Well, I mean, I don't know what details he has to give. It's a simple Venmo purchase. I mean, he just Venmos them the money, and then we move in. I mean, I've given you the Greenland lowdown, guys. You now know the ins and outs. There is an agreement from a national security standpoint. We could do whatever we needed to do, including housing personnel and building additional military bases there in Greenland. That would not be an issue. But buying Greenland, taking over Greenland, sorry, it's a non-starter.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. We are a live show. Am I living in an alternate universe? Asks someone. The VP suggesting we take over Greenland is only a bad dream, right? Says Harry Madden. It does feel like almost like a B movie, or like, there have been a bunch of these films that are kind of, with the funny sort of fake presidents and vice presidents were coming up with stuff like that. What a criminal clown show, says got on flies. Yeah, I mean it's clownish, but it's also scarily real, right? Buy Greenland with what, says Dillette, right? Well, we just run up more debt. You know, there's always money for buying Greenland. You saw that Donald Trump wants to double the Pentagon budget. The Pentagon is the most wasteful agency in the history of the U.S., and that says a lot. And if you go across the Potomac to Virginia, where the Pentagon is, you will be astounded at the waste. And I'm sure Pete Hegseth has found even new ways to waste it. You know, he's built a makeup room, and he's hired a bunch of people on to do videos for the propaganda that comes out of that department. But that's all nickel dime stuff. Donald Trump wants big weapon systems. He wants kind of well, who knows what he wants? I mean, he just is throwing this stuff out. But again, surrounded by those who just want to please the Mad King, we may see Pentagon budgets that have already, again, are so bloated and have already proven that no party, neither party, and no one in either party has the guts and the courage to say, no. This is too much. This is not money well spent. And of course, it's an unauditable budget at that. It may just happen. Can't feed our children, but we have money to buy Greenland. Thank you, Great Warrior Gaming. Yeah. We don't have money for your health insurance, but we have money for Greenland, and we have money for the Pentagon to double their budget. Yeah. All right. Smash the like button if you would, please. Appreciate that. It helps us in the world of YouTube.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, smash with your, do it like a boss. Smash that thumbs
with your
up.
Iron rod.
And do subscribe to the show and hit that notification bell. You'll know whenever we are on. We are a live show every day. Came from a radio station. We had a really successful radio show. Then they took the whole radio station away. So we've come here to this land of YouTube, Spotify. Yeah. After we do the live show on YouTube, our show goes up to Spotify. It goes to iHeartRadio. It goes to Apple Podcasts. It goes to Google Podcasts. Any place there's a legitimate podcast platform, we're there. And Albert has told me that we have one of the great legal analysts in the English-speaking world joining us. What a day of brilliance, from the brilliant Dr. Bill Black to this guy. He's a former federal prosecutor, now working as a defense attorney in Southern California. You've seen him on News Nation, Fox News Channel. Seen him on the BBC. He's on Radio 1 in London. You'll hear David Katz joins us from America. And boy, does he have his work cut out for us. He can give us the legal ins and outs of all of this in Minnesota. After that too lengthy an intro, how about it for the great David Katz?
Well, great to be with you, Mark, Kim, Albert.
Yeah, thank you, David. You're such a wonderful mind on so many things with the law. Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us for yet another year. And I want to ask you about this Minnesota thing. The videos we've seen, and Albert will run a little bit of the video, everyone, so we'll warn you, you'll likely see this ICE agent discharging his weapon into this car. If you look at the video, the narrative of this person, this woman trying to flee these ICE agents and this entire thing, you see the pickup truck pull up, the ICE agents jump out, one of them grabs the driver's side door handle, says, "Get the F out of the car," and then another who was sort of in the left fender, a little bit in front of the car, but, which is not, again, they train you not to be in front of the car. But in any case, discharges the weapon and kills her. 37-year-old single mother with a 6-year-old. She's an American citizen. It seems pretty clear-cut to me, David Katz. Give me what the law stipulates these ICE agents can do and how this narrative seems to have been seized. Kristi Noem said right away that she was trying to block these ICE agents, and she was really trying to, as a marauder, run them over. So that's the narrative that was initially floated. There is the ICE agent himself as he goes back to his car. he drives away from the scene in that silver SUV. That's his car. That in itself, I would think, would be a violation of, general protocol, that you would leave a scene where you've just murdered someone. Speak to everything I've just described and we've seen, and give me the law on all of this, if you would.
Well, it's a very tragic situation, and so many things were done wrong by ICE. One of them is that they're not conducting a proper investigation before running their mouths, as you said, before Kristi Noem made her statement. That's very unusual in law enforcement. When I was a federal prosecutor, I don't think I ever saw anything like that in my years there. She should say, we're conducting an investigation, we're putting the officer on administrative leave, and we'll get to the bottom of it. They should also allow the state to participate in the probe. But what's actually happened is that the FBI and DHS has said that the local and state investigators in Minnesota will not be given access to the evidence. So there's no way that they can even conduct a local or state investigation, which again looks like a rush to judgment, looks like the feds and DHS and Trump know that they have something to hide. Again, as you said before, it's tragic. Here's a single mother. She's not going there to do anything wrong. People say, well, if you only saw what happened for the few minutes before this incident that's on tape, then you'd know a lot more about it, and maybe you'd think that what the ICE did was justified. Ridiculous. As Biden used to say, malarkey, because you can figure out very well what the situation was previously. On top of that, a physician starts saying right away, I'm a doctor, let me approach the victim. And they don't allow the doctor to approach. In fact, one of the ICE agents says, I don't care. When he says, I'm a doctor, let me approach and try to help out, he says, I don't care, which I think was symptomatic of what was going on there, that they just didn't care. Then they also took more than 15 minutes to get medical assistance there of any sort. That's ridiculous. That should have been called in, and they should have had medical assistance ready to go. In fact, ICE should always have medical assistance ready to go, Mark, because the reality is that they have fomented and created these kinds of dangerous situations around the country. They've shot people and wounded people around the country. It's unbelievable that they don't have a rapid response health team ready to go. And I used to talk with Kim and Pat Thurston about the Breonna Taylor case down in Kentucky. And one of the things that made that even more aggravated was the delay in the Kentucky officials in getting medical attention there. So we've seen in these kinds of cases that aspect to it too. And when you turn to the actual situation, they're supposed to approach the ICE and other law enforcement in what they call an L pattern, which means you never let yourself get in front or right behind the vehicle, where if it speeds up or it goes back, it can hit you. This officer who did the shooting got himself in exactly that position. Raises the question, once everything else was wrong, once he was in the wrong position, what happened in about a second or two? And I'm not sure that we have really gotten to the bottom of that. That may depend on a lot more evidence and witness accounts. But what we can see so far, Mark, and again, I've been a federal prosecutor, I've been a criminal defense attorney. People may say, well, I'm always looking for what's the reasonable doubt in a case. Why am I coming to the officer's defense? I'm not. But I think that what's interesting about the case so far is that a bullet is shot through the front windshield. You have to be in front of the car when you're shooting in a bullet. We know that. We know that it went through the front windshield. There were apparently 3 shots. It was fatal. We don't know how quickly. Again, if they had medical attention, let that physician come on the scene, maybe he could have saved that poor woman's life. We don't know that right now. But we do know that a bullet was shot through the front windshield, which meant the officer, right or wrong, bad training or not, he had got himself in a situation where he was front of the car when it started not to go back anymore, but it came forward. It was not at a great rate of speed. People who say that, well, if it had been at a great rate of speed, that would be a different story. But in that second or two, I think that a fair investigation would see the fact that having gotten in that position, and maybe that's some kind of negligent homicide on his part. But at that moment, in that second or two, I think he doesn't know in that second or two whether that car is coming toward him or veering away from him. There's another video which shows that it actually either grazed him or touched him in some way just from looking at that second video. And so there is a theory, of course, that an officer, no matter what the situation is, can at least in response to a murder or voluntary manslaughter charge, can defend on the basis of self-defense, even if they have negligently gotten themselves into that situation. And so if people look back at that video and stop it in that second or two, look at the wheels, look at the car going forward. Yes, it's not going very fast, but 3 shots, one of them right through the front. The officer has to be in front, and being in front of that vehicle as it starts to go forward, he's going to say that he has the defense of self-defense. And I think it will. I don't think that the federal government has any interest in prosecuting him. If the case goes to state court, again, the state authorities don't even have the evidence. And also the feds would try to remove it to federal court, which we could talk about that if you'd like to. But you remember when the state DA down there in Atlanta, Georgia, went after the Trump people and Trump himself for making that phone call into Georgia. There was a lot of issues about whether the case had to be removed to federal court. And some of them were, it looked like, going to be successful to have the case brought to federal court. So the reality is, as to this officer, it looks like he's not going to be prosecuted for anything. Come a new administration, this will be within the 5-year statute of limitations. If it's murder, it's not within any statute of limitations. The state of Minnesota could go after him later, Mark. But what I hope is that the outrage, the fury over this, what the mayor himself said, get the F out of Minneapolis, you ICE agents, that this doesn't boil over. Now it is very important that they do not give Trump rope to invoke the Insurrection Act. You remember in LA, Mark, there was one night that things got out of hand. And from that one night that things got out of hand, from 5 Waymos being burned, Trump tried to justify his entire federalizing of the National Guard, sending in the Marines. That was based on one night. If this thing doesn't stop at night, if there's looting, if there's rioting and so forth, they will give Trump his excuse. Please don't do that. All of you good people in Minnesota who care about what happens to this country, don't let this lunatic, vindictive president have an opportunity. And then he'll go get himself maybe affirmed by the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. This isn't the 9th Circuit. This is one of the most conservative federal courts of appeal that sits over Minnesota. Because it's the Dakotas. It's a court that is also from the Dakotas and so forth. It's those states there. It's a very conservative, pro-Trump place, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. They may allow them to invoke the Insurrection Act, and then we're just waiting for 6 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court, for 2 of them to do the right thing, or else we have the Insurrection Act invoked in Minnesota. Please, people of Minneapolis, don't let rioting occur. Don't let the protests get out of hand, please.
Doesn't this, just on that, seem like maybe a road test for what we'll see around election time, where you have these ICE thugs out on the streets stirring up trouble, neighborhoods coming out, people telling them to get out. Then you have federal troops move in because the president invokes this Insurrection Act. You'll see it in blue states, but you'll see it in blue cities. Those are the cities that have typically been targeted by this president. But in a way, I'm just to step out of this, and then I'll get back to the legal ramifications and the court case that might emerge from this incident. But just because you've mentioned the Insurrection Act now a couple of times, doesn't this feel as though what you're seeing is kind of a flavor of what we might be seeing come election time?
Well, at least there would not be a precedent from either the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals or from the U.S. Supreme Court allowing the invocation of the Insurrection Act or monkeying around with the decision. You know, just before Christmas, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a very, I thought, well-reasoned decision, which said that the president has to first try with regular troops. Now, Trump has never tried with regular troops, regular military troops. What he tried to do is to federalize the National Guard out here in California over the wishes of our governor out here. And he also sent Marines out here. He was doing all of that. And the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, the only way that you can take those actions is if you first tried and failed to maintain order with regular troops, which means you'd have to first find that the Minneapolis police were not trying hard enough to quell the violence. Then you would call out regular troops under the Insurrection Act to not be bound by that righteous U.S. Supreme Court decision issued right before Christmas. And then you would say that the Insurrection Act was properly invoked because things had gotten so out of hand. You had that decision affirmed before the elections. There'll be a lot of grounds, or at least Trump will make up grounds. And right now he's stymied. He's got that U.S. Supreme Court case. I don't think that he really has any broad support, Mark, for the Insurrection Act. That sounds like the Whiskey Rebellion. That sounds like something from the 1800s, early 1800s. And I don't think that there's any groundswell.
But faced with an election that he knows he's going to lose, and I'm glad you mentioned the Supreme Court case because it did hand down this repudiation of the Trump policy when it came to bringing the National Guard in and seizing control. But when did it come in? It came in months and months and months after he'd actually done it. And so when the moment comes that he knows he's about to lose an election, I see this administration as pretty much throwing everything up against the wall to see what sticks, including an illegal insurrection act. And then I think you're going to find out that this Trump strategy, I'll just use that word, of doing things and then having the court case play out months later may work for him because in the meantime, you can put troops on the street.
You know, Mark, that's a great and very thoughtful question. But with the precedent that we now have, you know, before Trump did that in LA and in Chicago, there really wasn't a clear precedent because presidents, both Republicans and Democrats, even Trump the first time, had kind of stayed away from what he did to us in LA. And these, of course, huge ICE raids didn't really happen in the same way during even Trump 1.0. They stayed away from schools. They stayed away from many kinds of workplaces. They stayed away from churches. So there was kind of an unusual and unprecedented situation. And so it was difficult for judges to say, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order because there's a U.S. Supreme Court case that says until you've exhausted the regular military, you cannot federalize. You cannot send Marines in here. A federal judge, I think, if this happened during the election, Mark, would rapidly enter a TRO, even in red states, even Republican judges, even Trump-appointed judges, because there'd be a clear precedent that they could follow right away and say no, verboten. And so that's why I think we're in a very good stage right now with the law. And again, I ask Minneapolis, someone just sent a thing. They want to stick the troops on them. Yes, there'll be outrage. There'll be tremendous grief. I get it. And there should be protest of the most vigorous, enduring sort. But at 7 o'clock at night, they need to stop before the looters and anarchists start to take advantage of those and give Trump all the rope that he's going to need. Trump knows right now he wants to exploit this situation. Look how he exploited the situation in Venezuela. That's one of the very few things that he's good at, exploiting the compassion, right, and the caringness of his opponents, who are a huge block of the population at this point, and to turn it against them, to somehow manage to turn against all the outpouring of goodwill and love for this woman who was lost, for her family. She's a single mom. She's actually a podcaster. She'd had a podcast a few years ago. She just seems like a lovely, wonderful
she's a
woman.
poet. She's a podcaster. She's the only surviving parent. The father, as you say, single mother, but the father passed away. It's not like just a divorce situation where the father might be able to step up. This is a tragedy.
See, what I'm saying is, let's honor her name, and honor her memory by not giving this lunatic, repressive president rope, and that he could then use maybe from the decisions that he would get, because he will argue that the local police have failed. Local police don't fail. Enforce the law. This is not fun and games. Don't give Trump an excuse there in Minneapolis, please.
Mark, ask Katz about the Maduro charges. Will they hold? Where is the evidence? So shifting to the Maduro situation, David Katz, I've always felt that this, and we talked a little bit about this in your last visit with us last week, but I always felt that this was a fig leaf, smoke screen. They don't really care about narcotics and him being a narcotics trafficker. This is all crap. Now we're onto the oil, and there might even be an agenda beyond that. But speak to the legal dance that's being done now in New York. And as to CC Ryder's question, will these charges hold, and where is the evidence against Maduro?
Well, I had the privilege to be on your show on Monday, Mark. I hadn't been on last Thursday because it was New Year's Day. I hadn't been on the Thursday before because it was Christmas, but I was on Monday because the events of Venezuela were so fresh at that point. It was just over the weekend that Trump had sent the military into Caracas, and they had grabbed Maduro and his wife. They claim it's an arrest. They sent the FBI, they sent some marshal, they read him his rights, and they gave him his Miranda warnings. But of course, we all know that there was a huge military deployment, an armada sitting offshore, and then they grabbed him and his wife. So the question is, I think, first of all, and the case is now in New York City in federal court. There's a 92-year-old judge. Can I just do 30 seconds on that? There's an earlier case from 2020 against Maduro and some of his top officials. One of them was the spy chief, who is, I forget his name, but he's known as El Pollo, the chicken. Great nickname. Anyway, El Pollo apparently got convicted in front of this judge who was then 80-some years old, and now is looking to make a deal. And so he's going to be one of those snitches who wants to roll over and maybe tell the truth and maybe make up any lie that he thinks a jury will buy, so that he can throw Maduro under the bus and get out of prison and save his own skin, this El Pollo guy. So he's the judge on that case. So when it comes back with Maduro now charged in a superseding indictment, along with his wife, she's not in the original indictment, and his son, who's still in Caracas complaining about everything that's happened from the Trump administration, the wife and the son are now charged in that superseding indictment. And it goes back to the old judge who's gone senior, but has not left the bench. And so there's controversy about, can a 92-year-old judge, no matter how, no matter how great his reputation has been, can he really handle a case that may not go to trial until a year, 2, 3 years from now, when the judge would be 93, 94, or 95? So the issues that will come up, one of the first ones will be, hey, I was, as Maduro said in court, I was kidnapped. I was illegally abducted from my country. And the U.S. courts, Mark, actually have a doctrine called the Kerr-Frisbee doctrine, which says that that is not a defense to the charges. You cannot raise the fact that you were kidnapped, abducted, illegally seized in a foreign country as your defense. You can suppress the results of an interrogation if you were illegally interrogated anywhere, and you can fight the charges on their merits back in the United States. But you can't say you've got to dismiss the charge and put me back where I should have been, which was in my country, unabducted. So unless they're going to change the law, and I don't think so, those great changes in the law seem to only arise for the right wingers on the Supreme Court when it comes to like Roe v. Wade. Then you can change the law of 50 years. But I don't think they're going to change that law. So Maduro doesn't have much luck there. Now, Maduro is also going to say that he's a head of state. That's another interesting one. He was recognized as the head of state by the United States, by Biden, and by Trump the first time. But then after it seemed quite apparent that he stole the most recent election, the U.S. government said that, no, he's not the legitimate head of government. So he's got to get over the hurdle, even if a head of state is entitled to protection, that he is not the legitimate head of state as of the time that he was abducted and brought to court here. And in that sense, he's different from General Manuel Noriega down in Panama anyway. People always compare their cases now, who are aware of both the cases. But he was not even titularly the head of state. He was a general, Noriega. So the head of state doctrine didn't really arise. And where the head of state usually arises, Mark, is this is the classic situation from diplomacy. You invite the foreign leader to come to the United States to have negotiations, and then you backstab him. You put him into jail. Or somebody comes to the UN, and while they're crossing New York City on the way to the UN from their hotel, you grab them and you say, Chavez, you're under arrest. Netanyahu, you're under arrest. Something like that happens. The diplomatic principle was that, no, you cannot do that sort of thing. But of course, that's not what happened to Maduro. Again, he wasn't invited here and then betrayed. He was abducted from the presidential palace. So I don't think that his motions are going to really be that great. And I don't think that there's like, I think that at some point he's going to have to go to trial. I also think it's possible that he gets a pardon. that at some point during Trump's term, he decides that it's in his and Maduro's, it's obviously in Maduro's interest to get a pardon. But it's somehow, and you can just think through some way that Trump can figure out how to make money or push Maduro's vice president around down there, and somehow it makes sense to give him a pardon. And people who think that's unbelievable, this man has just been branded a drug dealer in a federal indictment. Well, the head of Honduras, not only was branded a drug dealer, he was proven to be a drug dealer in front of all 12 jurors. He lost his appeals. He had a 40 or 45-year jail sentence, and Trump just pardoned that fellow. So maybe Maduro, if he plays ball, has a pardon in his future. Of course, there's also his wife. Seems like the evidence against her is weak, and yet that hasn't stopped the New York Post from calling her the Latin Lady Macbeth.
If Maduro comes up with the right amount of money, he will be pardoned for sure, says Ms. T. Jules. Yeah, I always wonder, since the Hernandez pardon, what will happen. But I thank you for sort of running that. It sounds to me like the fix is in, on some level, to run this guy into a prison is going to be kind of a short run. Is there a way in which is there the same presumption that he'll get a kind of real handling of his case in an objective judicial way? Is that presumption even reasonable, or is the reality, as I say, it's a kangaroo court?
No, I don't think he's going to face a kangaroo court, whether that 92-year-old judge stays on the case or not. There are very fine judges in the Southern District of New York. It's a premier district, I should say, like LA, like the Central District of California, where I was a prosecutor. But, those are the premier districts, along with some others in the United States. The judges are very good there. There have been some rulings that have been against the Trump administration from that. Actually, this is, I think, the judge who let Michael Cohen get out of jail when he said, hey, Trump is just keeping me in jail because it's a political thing and a revenge thing. And I think this is the Judge Hellerstein in New York who let, and he's ruled against the Trump administration on some other things. So I think he's going to do his level best to give Maduro and his wife a fair trial. There is this snitch who's going to say basically all the drug running that I did. First, I went to El Comandante and I said, is this fine that I'm running these drugs? And he's going to say, Maduro said, yes, yes, yes. And the wife supposedly said, yes, yes, yes. And one of the things they're supposed to have done, Mark, is given diplomatic passports to people who were not diplomats, but were known to the Maduros to be drug smugglers and drug runners. And that would allow the people who got the diplomatic passports to get through the normal surveillance that their airplanes or their persons would get because they had diplomatic pouches now. I don't know how much you can really smuggle in a diplomatic pouch. I mean, let's be realistic. I think a lot of this is really fanciful. I think whatever you think of Maduro, and he was a thug, and his wife might have been a thug-S or whatever the word is, a lady Macbeth thug, if you believe all of that about her. They were running a country. They were running a socialist revolution down there. They had a lot of other problems. And if drugs were being transshipped from Colombia, I think it's more that I think what really happened there, and I don't have a crystal ball, but I think what really happened there is they didn't do more to suppress it. Maybe they could have done more to suppress it and control it. But here were powerful generals, powerful people who were on the Maduro side. Country was incredibly polarized. Why make so many waves, whatever that person is doing? And I think it's going to be very unlikely that the Maduros knew the details. One thing, you look at these indictments nowadays, and I'm a criminal defense attorney right now. I have indictments I'm looking at right now defending people on. They try to be very detailed. Now they even have photographs as part of the indictments, which show the guy, let's say he's fencing goods. They show him in the process of fencing goods right in the indictment. They also tend to have lots of quotes. That's one thing that Jack Smith had with all that he's been, vilified by these Republicans who are still Trumpsters. Very detailed. Remember that, Mark? He would lay out exactly bits of evidence. You don't see that in any of the of this indictment. This superseding indictment doesn't say on such and such a date he met with so and so and he told him, whatever you do, bring the drugs through this place, bring it through Miami, bring it on a ship. There's nothing like that. So, people are going to sit there. It's not going to be a kangaroo court. It's going to be a chicken court. It's going to be El Pollo, and they'll get other people who are facing 40 or 50 years, and they'll say, that's the guy who told me what to do. And his good lawyer. The other thing, he can afford good lawyers. So from what I've seen so far, Mr. Maduro has the same lawyer that Julian Assange had. He got him quite a good deal after all those years that Assange was in the embassy and all that kind of stuff in London. And the other lawyer, here's another, if you don't mind me getting inside baseball, the woman, the Mrs. Maduro, I had two nephews. I think they're her nephews. They did get caught in a drug conspiracy involving the United States. They got convicted. They got imprisoned, her two nephews. And then there was a prisoner swap 3 years ago where they swapped some people that Venezuela had grabbed for some American prisoners, including the two nephews of the so-called Latin Lady Macbeth. So the plot thickens, Mark.
Oh my God, that's wild. That's a great fact. I didn't know. All right, so let me just, in summary here, step back and say that in the case of the Minnesota, what I think is the clear act of cold-blooded murder on the part of that ICE agent, it sounds to me like what you're saying is the government seizing control not only of the narrative but of the investigation, and that in all of these different ways they will cocoon this ICE agent from any sort of real justice, I guess might just be the way to put it.
So well said.
And so that's where we are. And you also accompany that analysis with a warning saying, great to protest in Minnesota, do it during the day, but at night, please don't give them the ammunition, if you'll pardon that expression, to bring in additional troops for the invocation of the Insurrection Act, et cetera. So do your protesting during the day, but keep the streets of Minnesota free of that at night. This is from Anthony Aguilar de Opreso Liber, I don't know, whatever. The $10 super chat. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. Yeah, George Orwell, they are lying to our faces. Rise up. Of course, that's true. We've talked about the fact that these are Orwellian times. I have my mug that says this is Project 1984.5, which I think is exactly right. And in the case of Maduro, it's also, it sounds like a government effort to, they're not so dissimilar in the sense that it's a government effort to kind of create a narrative without, again, a lot of the specifics that would support that narrative. So the Maduro situation is a little squishier is what I'm getting from you, but it sounds as though it's going to be very dependent on a court that is predisposed toward conviction.
Well, let's talk about the situation in Minneapolis first. And I'm incredibly sympathetic to this woman and her family and to the protests. I hope, again, that there are lots and lots of protests. I hope that the whole country, they're protesting right now in Los Angeles, I think as we speak, all over the country. And I think it's great that they're vigorous and they're heartfelt, and that there's, if there are millions of people in the street, that's great. Maybe the Democrats, among other issues, will run on this. I mean, ICE is so unpopular. This is not the America that, we know and love and cherish. The mission is so misguided. They're not getting the worst of the worst. The statistics have shown that it's well over 50% of the people who are being apprehended who've committed no crime whatsoever. And of course,
let me just interject one thing. I think one of the things, I've made this point before, but let me just make it again right now. I think one of the things that really does make a difference and helps sort of feed the anger about ICE is the video. There are so many videos of what ICE agents are doing, the ruthlessness, the ugliness, the deliberate cruelty of ICE agents. These are thugs on the streets of America. And the fact that it's being recorded and then disseminated on all these different platforms, I think helps Americans understand how ugly it is, and it creates what you're talking about, which is the anger about it, and that's why it polls so poorly, and it's a political winner for those who are talking about it. My legal question for you on this is, might there be a moment at which they make recording these law enforcement, again, I use it in quotes, actions on the part of ICE, when they make recording those actions illegal on the part of many of these citizen journalists, what might happen in that way that would blunt what I'm talking about?
Well, I think that you have a First Amendment right to not have the government impede you from standing there, recording it, disseminating it. I think the courts will be pretty good, on that. We had a case out here in LA where a cop, sheriff, goes out to an area north of Los Angeles. A woman is, acting loud, as she has a right to act loud, and she wants to start recording them right away. Sheriff takes an immediate dislike to that, handcuffs her, throws her to the ground. That case went to a jury trial when Biden was president in front of a Republican-appointed judge who wasn't trying to cut the government any breaks in a case like that where a deputy sheriff was on trial. The deputy sheriff was found guilty. He was about to be heading to sentence. 4 people resigned from my old office, the U.S. Attorney's Office. A guy named Robert Keenan. We've talked about him before. Robert Keenan sees his chance to go handle that case. He goes and handles that case. He asks first that ultimately he asks that the case be totally dismissed. Here's a case where a jury has found the person guilty of a felony. First, Robert Keenan asked the government to not ask the court, Republican-appointed judge, to knock it down to a misdemeanor and then to dismiss it entirely. That's under the Trump administration. So they have a record of not treating these cases seriously at all. That case was dismissed is a total outrage. Fortunately, that woman is suing. You can't stop anybody from suing anybody in America. There are some issues about trying to sue a federal officer. That's, of course, that famous doctrine of qualified immunity. But one of the issues in qualified immunity, Mark, is whether the training and experience is such that you would know that this was illegal conduct. And so the argument is going to be the qualified immunity does not save this shooting cop, as you call him, this murdering cop, does not save him because it was very clear from the training and from the record, he's not supposed to do that. He's not supposed to be in front of the car in a situation where he can get hit. And then, he's using deadly force in a situation where this will be some argument back and forth. Please, people, don't scream at me. There will be, Katsadamas says, there will be some argument back and forth whether he had a right to use deadly force because he was really in danger in that second or two that the car is actually coming toward him. And he's in front of the car in a situation where he can does shoot into the front. He doesn't shoot her from the side. He shoots her from the front. He has to be in front of the car to shoot that bullet through the front windshield as he does. But I agree.
Just to be clear, he was in the front. He was in the front toward the left front fender. He wasn't directly in front of the vehicle.
Maybe he's shooting her like that, but I'm just saying that will be, to me, I think, about the only thing that will be controverted in the case. Let's say the Democrats come to power and they decide to prosecute that case, which is well within the 5-year statute of limitations, when I believe the Democrats will be back in the White House and will be controlling the Justice Department and DHS and all of it. They'll have all the records. And if and when they prosecute him, I think that will be the legal issue. We'll talk in 3.5 years, Mark, and we'll see.
Yeah, maybe Merrick Garland will do that, huh?
Mark, it won't be Merrick Garland. They'll get somebody with
that piece of garbage.
They'll get somebody with cojones this next time.
Thank you. This is the last piece of. We'll show it to you again, and you can see. I mean, you're talking about this guy in front. I get he's in the left front.
Slow it down right there.
Vehicle. Yeah,
can you slow it down right there? That's him, right behind that guy.
Yeah, but he's not directly in front. He's sort of in the kind of the left front headlight, sort of.
Show it again.
Yeah.
She's backing up now.
Now she's backing up, which is certainly
now
not
here
driving
comes
over anybody.
Here he comes, and he goes and gets himself in this terrible position.
Left
He's not
front,
even thinking,
but look,
what if she turns and starts going forward? He apparently hasn't had that thought cross his mind, so he's standing sort of in front of it.
Yeah, but then he's on the side, and the following. I thought he discharged his weapon from the side as well, but the bullet does go through.
The bullet does go through the front windshield. That's not disputable.
Mark, I'm out of time, David Katz. I'm out of time.
Mark, one last thing, if we have a second on Maduro.
Yeah. What is your prediction, Katsadamas, on Maduro? Just bottom line this.
I'll do it real quick. But the fact that it's a violation of international law does not give Maduro, I think, any rights in the courtroom. I mean, they'll litigate that, but I just don't think that it does. We have doctrine that says that basically we can violate international law in our courts. People may think that that's unbelievable, but there's no body that we've recognized the jurisdiction of, like the International Criminal Courts, that supersedes the Supreme Court. And our doctrine here in the United States is that a violation of international law in this situation does not give a criminal defendant rights to have the case dismissed.
So it cannot be dismissed under international law for the abduction of Maduro, if you will, as he's put it. We have the Katsadamas. You saw it up there, the caricature of you as the great predictor. You are the great predictor. What is your prediction on the Maduro court case, please? Guilty or not guilty?
I think probably both of them get found guilty. I think her, because of her involvement with her nephews, not that her nephews who are back in Venezuela, I think are going to testify against her. But I think that there'll be people who were involved in that case who will say that she had enough of a role in it that she'll be found guilty. And I think that Maduro, it'll be, there'll be some people who will give him a fair trial. So he's got, I think, a chance of a hung jury. But I think in general, there'll be so many people clamoring to testify for the government. Yes, there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt, Mark. That's a high standard. But when you have 4, 5, 6 of these people, and they're all giving their accounts of what happened, it's just hard for jurors to think, you know what? All 4, 5, 6, they could bring in 20 of them. They would all lie to save their own skin.
Sure.
And so I think that they'll probably both be found guilty. I think there's a good chance they'll both be pardoned during Trump's term.
And they'll both be pardoned during Trump's term. Wow.
I think there's a good chance that they'll both be pardoned. Yeah,
That is extraordinary. I would not have predicted that as
what?
Yeah, I know.
The Honduras president. He's sort of precedent, isn't he?
Yeah, but you're right. That was through Roger Stone, also big money. Will the Maduros be found guilty or not guilty? I asked Mr. Predicto. I hate to put you up against Mr. Predicto, but yeah.
Now is not the right time to tell you.
Okay. Mr. Predicto, he is not willing to go out on a limb.
Well, I have the temerity.
Yes.
And not the timorousness of your Mr. Predicto.
I'll ding both. All right. You can find David Katz across, as I say, the spectrum of broadcast offerings, News Nation, BBC, etc., Fox News Channel, and here on Thursdays. Thanks, David Katz. Appreciate you.
My pleasure to be with all of you.
All the best, my friend.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Wow, I do love it. I do love a good conversation with Katz. He really brought it today, didn't he? Man. Well, it is getting late. I want to, I can attest to that personally, says Anthony Aguilar, de Oppresso Liber. They come after whistleblowers. It's their attempt to hide the truth. The light will defeat the darkness, though, says Anthony Aguilar. Look, there's no question they come after whistleblowers. Talk to our first guest, but Bill Black. Google him. I mean, they've iced him, and he really broke open the SNL scandal. Good morning, everyone, and Mark from Chaplain Fred with a $4.99 super chat. Will you be talking about Newsom's speech that he is doing today? It's very bold. I'm not going to be, maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. I'm not going to be talking about it today.
Tomorrow we'll have video of the speech that he gave today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's do that tomorrow. But thank you, Chaplain Fred, for putting it on our agenda, because it, it's an agenda that's packed. We kind of, as much as I love David Katz, I do not share his view that the courts will do what is right anymore, says Phil the Thrill. The courts are so politicized now that the law doesn't matter anymore. No trust in the courts. Well, I think the courts on some level were always politicized, but I take your point. And now it's gone to an even more intense level. What the F?
Sorry.
You knew when an obscene amount of money was directed to ICE that it meant that they would blanket the country, and the fact that they hire almost anyone was going to result in avoidable tragedy, says Hilo Karen. And of course, you're right. And we made that point at the time. The minute they supercharged the ICE budget, we said, this is what's going to happen. This is the thuggery that is now going to infest all of the U.S. cities that they want to go up against. Trump pardoned Tina Peters for election interference in Colorado, but the governor blew him off. So he vetoed the law that Congress passed regarding their water. That's right, 2009. Thank you. That's exactly right. But you saw what happened. Congress overrode that veto. Isn't that right, Kim? I think I'm pretty right about that. I mean, I am right about that. I'm humbly right about that. It's one of two vetoes that were overruled. Yeah. So kind of a big deal. Mm-hmm. Why the F would people in Greenland tell the world that the USA could take control of the capital of the country in 30 minutes? Why? Says teacher Lori. What was the 30 minutes thing?
I didn't hear that they did.
They didn't. I'm sure they didn't. Maybe I think that's what she's saying. I don't know. A masked gunman from the government shooting civilians, says Mike Boat. Y'all better nip this in the bud before it is you that they are hunting. Exactly. I mean, you know, that's what we've said too. I'm telling you, these ICE thugs are everywhere, and you can see the law is not something they feel bound by. Vance is now telling the press how the videos should be viewed and exactly what they are seeing in the videos. Wow, says Randy. Do you believe your eyes or those a-holes, says Lucy Corbier. Yeah, exactly. It's the, believe me or your lying eyes. Don't believe what you see and hear. Trust the administration to tell you the truth, says Remarkable. We all saw the video, says Lucy. He murdered that poor lady, then would not allow a doctor to go and try to save her. That is true. I agree. Vance is again impugning this woman, asking what mother would do this and saying that she was radicalized into her actions. Yeah, says Randy, and it's just total. Maybe there is an asterisk in the Trump Bible at the place where it says not to kill, says Ole Hansen. J.D. Vance is laying part of the blame on the press. Typical, says Randy. A lot of Randy here. Randy should get his own show, don't you think, everybody?
Yeah,
I think Randy should.
He has some good things to say today,
Yeah, no, Randy, he typically has good things to say. Yeah. Randy's and Ole Hansen are saying the same thing, that this is what I don't understand. Vance is telling us that his interpretation of the video is the only correct interpretation. Yeah. And yet these guys are talking out of their ass about it. I also think that, look, if there was truth on your side, you would allow the Minnesota investigative agencies to be involved in all of this, and you're not. You're boxing them out. So the feds have not allowed, if you're just joining us, the Minnesota investigative agencies to have anything to do with it. So they've seized this entire matter such that the investigative agencies from Minnesota will have no ability to investigate.
And I just don't trust that any investigation done by the federal government will say anything other than what Trump wants it to say.
Of course, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. But Noem says Minnesota's investigators have no jurisdiction to investigate this ICE shooting.
Latest update, Phineas says, latest update is that ICE told the woman to leave. She did, and they shot her. It is just that plain and simple. I do think it is really not that hard, and yet it's a pretty brutal chain of events. Anything else that we've got to go? I'm sorry. Wish I could stay longer. But tomorrow is Friday, is it?
No, yes, tomorrow is Friday.
No.
And we have some exciting guests on the show. We got Mo Kelly and Michael Schur who will be returning, and an LA Times columnist is going to swing by as well. This is Gustavo. Gustavo
Arellano. Yeah,
right.
He is brilliant, and does a brilliant piece in this week's LA Times that I'd love to talk to him about, and I'll bring him to you in hour 1 tomorrow of this show.
And then, of course, the culture blaster, Michael Snyder.
Can I leave you with something nice and warm-hearted?
Please.
Can you pull this together, the cat picture?
Oh, yeah,
No?
I did. I do have the email that it's in the show document toward the
Well,
end.
before I leave you, it's in the
Mhm.
show doc. So are you calling Albert to do it, or can you do it, Kim? Because there,
There's
Al,
the
thank
picture.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Albert. You're wonderful. And that is a 2-year-old tuxedo cat waiting to be adopted. Her name is Minerva. This is from Linda B. That's who is sending us this. I volunteer at Pets in Need in Palo Alto, an exceptional no-kill shelter, she says. They service most animals. We've had a duck in residence on the past 2 weeks, and this is my dream job since I retired. I'm a cat socializer. I fall in love with new kittens and cats every week. 63 cats were adopted the past few weeks. Way to go. Pets in Need is the name of the organization. And I'm so delighted, Linda B. You're a supporter of the show. You know, I'm a cat lover and animal lover myself, and it means so much that you do that great work, and it warms my heart on this day that has been so full of darkness that you bring us some light. So
The only
thank you.
problem with this job is that I would go to be a cat socializer and want to bring them all home with me.
Now, it is hard to resist, isn't it? I think that's true. Yeah. But I love this always.
What she didn't say is she's the one that adopted all 63 cats.
Yeah, that could be. I'm still a dog guy, says Spencer J. Well, you don't have to make a choice, man. I mean, it's fine. You can make that choice, but I'm just as long as you don't hate on cats, it's fine to be a dog guy. Dogs are wonderful too. But in any case, I think it's just sweet. Dogs, cats, whatever. When you give of yourself, your time, and you work toward the adoption and taking oftentimes forgotten creatures and giving them a chance, it's a great, great thing. So, big show tomorrow, everybody. Thanks for being here. And now, the great Shadow Stevens takes us out.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kim, thank you. Albert, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Bill Black and David Katz. And until tomorrow, bye-bye.
Thank you.